Hello, and welcome to another episode of Let's Talk About Shh. This podcast is determined to help you maximize pleasure and get the most out of your sex life. We put out new episodes every week addressing things from, relationship troubles to sex tips. My name is Tila. I'm a sex educator and relationship expert and published author. I love helping people connect with themselves and understand, their sexuality. It is literally one of my favorite topics. So if you love learning about sex, dating, relationships, love, consent, gender, and more, you've completely come to the right place. You can also check out additional resources I've got completely for free on my website, exploresextalk.com. And please, if you have any questions that you'd like to have answered in upcoming episodes, please send those in to questions@exploresextalk.com. So today we are going to be talking about rejection. Now, it can be hard to be rejected, and often we don't really get to know why. People usually feel awkward when turning someone else down, and they don't want to add to the sting by hurting your feelings to say why. That does present the problem. How can we grow as people if we don't know why we're always being turned down? So, some of us want to continue to grow, and we want to be successful with people we're attracted to. So when we're faced with consistent rejection, where we aren't told why, all we can really do is try to sort of figure it out on our own. So we can look at a number of different factors to help us figure out where we are going wrong. Things like, who are we trying to pursue? How do we present ourselves to others? What do we currently have to offer a potential partner? All these things play into our success in dating. So let's dig a little bit deeper into each of those. Now, most people tend to have a type. They're attracted to a certain kind of person with certain qualities. These qualities can range from physical, emotional, mental, ethical, financial, or even social, in some cases spiritual. We often don't think about our attraction by breaking it down in that kind of way. Often our sense of attraction is a combination of different things from each of these aspects of a person. So this can make it challenging for us, when we first start to think critically about, the types of people we pursue. So why does this matter? Sometimes asking someone why they aren't interested isn't always an option. If we have a specific type and we feel we're consistently being rejected by that type, it can become easier to start to identify, what the reasons for our lack of success in love. We can look at the preferences of our ideal local type. Are there any unifying factors? What kind of things do they like? How do they react with people in different contexts? Is there a common type that your preferred type usually goes after? Examining these kind of things can help us, have a better idea, or at least an educated guess as to why our affection may not be returned. Once you have an idea, you can decide, what kind of changes you want to make. Should you pursue other types of people, or do you want to make changes in yourself to reflect, the types of things that attract your ideal type? Now, another stumbling block people often hit is confidence. How we present ourselves to others does make a huge difference in how they see us. Whether we interact with someone with calm confidence, or maybe we're nervous energy, that can impact how relaxed others are around us. And confidence makes a huge difference because people like to feel that they can relax and enjoy the company of someone. If someone's full of anxious energy and the person doesn't know why the other person is anxious, they're going to end up feeling anxious and nervous as well. It can be really hard to relax. And, when we're looking for a romantic partner, we look for people who, put us at ease and, make us feel like we can put our guard down. So most people don't want to be intimate with someone who makes them feel like they need to watch their back, right? So confidence doesn't just mean arrogance, though, and taking control. Many people think that confidence is only shown through, making a big scene or taking control of every situation, and generally making, yourself loud and a big deal. And, for some, this may be what confidence looks like. but it's also what a lot of false or fake confidence tends to look like. And those who don't fake confidence very well are pretty easy to spot. And that can be even more off-putting for people. Other people describe it as someone is trying too hard. And that's a really common reason that people can get rejected. The secret to real confidence is actually feeling comfortable with ourselves and who we are. So when we're interacting with someone, it's best if we're relaxed and our authentic selves. We don't have to put on a big show, or pretend to be someone we're not, just to demonstrate how confident we are. If you're comfortable in your own skin, that feeling is going to come across to other people. And that is the type of confidence that the majority of people tend to respond really positively to, regardless of whether or not they realize it. So another major factor in rejection is, what that other person is looking for. There's this old idea that, good relationship completes you, and people describe love as filling their needs and making them complete. But our relationship doesn't make us complete. We are whole people all on our own. I've said this before and I'll say it again. But people tend to describe it this way because they often can't imagine a life without that partner. And what that other person brings to their life makes their life better. It's often a collection of small things, things that the partner may do, or, from providing emotional support, or that one chore you absolutely hate. We tend to look for partners that fit well in our life and add something to our life. We ultimately want someone who is going to fill those needs for us, as selfish as that may sound. But it's the truth, and this is another aspect that people don't tend to think about a lot intentionally, but it impacts their attraction to others. Relationships are very much a compromise. And if someone feels that another person won't meet a lot of their needs and might actually take up a lot of time or maybe a lot of energy away, most people are just going to feel like that person isn't a good fit. We make ourselves vulnerable to romantic partners. So we want to make sure that our partner is someone that can support us, in the ways that we need to be supported in order to feel safe and happy and secure. So when looking for a romantic partner, how you're presenting yourself to that person makes a difference. Do they see you as someone who can fill the needs they have? Are you concerned with only getting your own needs met? How this comes across to our love interest is going to make a huge difference in how they respond to our advances. Unfortunately, we can't always have an impact on how someone sees us romantically. Rejection happens to us all, at some point, and it sucks because it does feel crummy. We all want to be considered attractive and awesome. It's common to want people to look at you in a good light, and, this desire is definitely amplified for people that we admire and that we want to be in a romantic relationship with. We want the attraction we feel for a person to be returned. Sadly, this is not always the case. The good news is that there are things we can do to help us remove that sting of rejection. There are also things we can do to try to take it more gracefully. That way, if we are rejected by our love interest, we can still shoot for, the second best case scenario. Maybe a scenario that may not be possible if we were to take rejection poorly. So some people may wonder, why put in the effort of making it easier for our love interest to reject us? Why should we make it easier for them? The answer is that turning down people, for some people especially, isn't really a fun experience either. Unless a person is really an arrogant jerk, they're going to care about the emotional well-being of the person they have no romantic feelings for. So just because they may not be attracted to you romantically doesn't mean they think you're a terrible person, or, that they don't care about you, or that they want to see you in pain. They just don't care about you in a romantic way. And that's not something that should be held against them. You may not be romantically interested in all the people who are interested in you. That doesn't make it your fault. That doesn't make you a bad person. People love who they love. And they're attracted to what they're attracted to. Making someone feel bad for it just isn't really a nice thing to do. So the other point to taking rejection gracefully is that it does leave that door open if they change their mind. Now, sometimes circumstances change, and a person may be open to your interest at a later time. It's true that there's absolutely no guarantee, and people should definitely not wait around for this to occur, or it should not be an expectation. But the reality is that if you react terribly to a rejection, it will never occur. It's pretty much a guarantee. Reacting with a display of temper, harassment, abusive language, or guilting is pretty unattractive to a lot of people. And, these kind of reactions can also make people, particularly women, start to get worried about their safety. Now, you may know that you would never hurt someone because of being turned down, but sadly, there is a large amount of documented cases of people who have done just that. Depending on the circumstances, such as how well you know this person, your history, the person who's turning you down may not know you that well. They may not have any assurances that you're not prone to violence at rejection. So at the end of the day, people should always prioritize their safety. So bad emotional reaction to rejection can be a big red flag to people, and it can actually cause them to avoid you going forward. So how can you handle rejection gracefully? Well, some people argue that the key is just not to get your hopes up, but this can be tough, and hope is actually what makes us excited and communicates good energy to our crush. So if we're going into the conversation, expecting to be turned down, there's a good chance the other person's going to pick up on that, and they may read it as we're not actually that interested or that we lack confidence. So the key is not to walk into the conversation expecting to be turned down, but to make being turned down less of a life-shattering event. So keeping your cool in these kind of situations, it's a bit of an art. It's a delicate balance, and it's going to take some people more practice than others. If you find that you get really anxious about the idea, it's a good idea to just do some preparation work before making your romantic interest known. So take some time to think about what your second best case scenario is. If they don't return your romantic affection, would you like to be friends? Would you like the opportunity to get to know them better? It should be something that's reasonable and respectful of the boundaries the other person has set. Sometimes we're not going to be able to reach any kind of agreement with the person. They may have reasons of their own, why they may not have any interest at all at having us in our lives. That can really suck. But it's important that we respect the consent of the person and abide by their wishes for space, whatever that's going to be. Once you have an idea of what a secondary plan is, and you create some comfort with yourself for it, the whole situation can actually feel less intense. I mean, obviously, you'd still like to have, the hope that you're a romantic connection, but knowing that there's other options that you're okay with makes it less of an all or nothing, win or lose conversation. You don't have all your hopes pinned to the highest point. It can be a good way to help relieve some of the stress of this situation. And the calmer you feel, the calmer you're going to be able to respond to their answer, whatever that is. I also have a few tips for in the moment to sort of help you stay calm. So when you're talking to your crush, keep the conversation light. The more intense you make it, the more uncomfortable the other person could get, and the harder the rejection is going to be for everybody. If you can keep that conversation relaxed and comfortable, you're more likely to get an honest answer as to why they may not be interested. During the whole conversation, it's really important to remember to breathe. I know that seems like a no-brainer, but when we feel anxious, we tend to hold our breath or take really short breaths, which can sort of contribute to our anxiety. So if you start feeling upset or anxious, take a quiet, deep breath to yourself. This is going to help slow your heart rate down. It's going to help you feel more in control. Now, typically it's better if you can calm yourself quietly. If your crush sees you making a big show of trying to keep control of your emotions, it's going to do a lot of damage to that keeping the conversation light and might make the other person uncomfortable. In some situations, this is not always a bad thing, having more intense conversations. Sometimes serious conversations are appropriate and helpful. But context plays a really big role here. The past history you have with your crush matters. If it's someone you don't know or barely know, having a super serious conversation is going to feel really awkward. They may not be able to or even know how to comfort you and could just hastily retreat from the conversation. So, use your best judgment. When the moment of rejection occurs, try not to dwell on it. I know that's hard, but, try not to dwell. And if it feels appropriate, you can try asking, if they feel comfortable giving a reason for the rejection. They may not. In most cases, unless you know someone really well, they probably aren't going to feel comfortable giving you their reasons, and that's okay. It's important just to remember to remain respectful. Don't demand the answer. If they say they're not comfortable, just let them know that's okay. This is a good time to offer some of those second best case scenarios we were talking about earlier. Offer to be their friend or get to know them better. Once again, let them choose to decline. If that's the case, it's best to simply accept it. Don't try to argue or persuade. You can simply tell them that if they change their mind, you're open to it. And at this point, it's probably a good time to either change the subject or gracefully excuse yourself. The longer the rejection is drawn out, the worse both you and your crush are going to feel, and the more awkward it's going to feel. So I hope that is helpful in, some tips on handling rejection. What tips do you have? What works well for you? I'd love to hear that. So please send it in. I'd be happy to share those in future episodes. So we just had one question this week. So remember, if there's any questions that you'd like answered, please email them into questions@exploresextalk.com. So the question for this week, and it was sent in anonymously. Hold on, let me grab my paper here. Oh, okay. So the question for this week, are you ready? Have I built up the anticipation? Okay, so says, what should I do? I got my girlfriend pregnant with a baby girl. I'm happy with her. I genuinely love her, but she wants me to commit to her and propose. She said it would help her emotionally since giving birth is hard. What should I do? Well, many women who want to get married when they first find out they're pregnant is because they're afraid of being a single mother. Many people see getting married as a solid sign of commitment. So it sounds like your girlfriend is looking for some assurance that you're going to be there to help raise the child. She's probably scared and looking for something to try and make her feel less so. It also might be dependent on her upbringing. There's plenty of societal norms that sort of state that, kids out of wedlock is bad, so on and so forth. There's a lot of different reasons why she may be pushing for it. Regardless of your intentions or the strength of the relationship, depending, on how she was raised, like I said, that's going to change things. So, it may be the idea of getting married may be the only thing that gives her comfort at this time. I think the first step for you is determine what are your reasons for not wanting to propose. I'm not saying you're wrong. There's no right or wrong in this situation because it depends on how both of you feel. But it's important for you to understand for yourself, how you're feeling and what your position actually is. I'm a big advocate that no one should ever get married purely for the kids. Relationships that are built on that often end up modeling some pretty toxic behaviors. And that can actually influence kids' ideas about love in a very negative way that can impact their adult relationships. So the choice to get married should be made because it's something that you both genuinely want, to build a life together. Once you have a good idea of what your position is, I would have a gentle conversation with your girlfriend to make sure you understand her position. Ask her to clarify. How would it be emotionally helpful, for the birth? What makes this proposal so important? Her answers may be vastly different to my suggestion here, but you're never going to know if you don't ask. And by having this conversation, the two of you can suss out what the best course of action is going to be. It may be to get married, and maybe it's not. There are too many unknown variables right now, and the best way to figure that out is by having that conversation. So I hope that helps. That's it for today. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Please share it. In the meantime, stay safe.